How did you feel during the crimes being committed?
No feeling.
Nothing?
Nothing.
A lot of people would say that's very cold-blooded, John.
Not as cold as forgetting some of the lives of the victims that you killed with your bare hands.
You have no recollection of any crimes.
Some I've forgotten, but a lot I haven't. It resides within myself, a mental haven that I created as the chaos ensued during my crimes. I could go to a place of calm, normal heartbeat, normal breathing. It'd be like I was dressing myself to get ready for the day as I shoved a tenacious blade into a living woman's flesh. The screams are kind of like songs we hear on the radio, but the difference between the repetition of the radio and these screaming melodies is you only hear them once. So it's kind of hard to remember all the melodies that you hear.
That's very disturbing, John.
Indeed it is.
Do you remember Julia Hanson?
Julia Hanson. How could I forget her screams? She's one of the only girls I ever stalked for years. And now you guys got a bit more evidence on my crimes. Probably one of the youngest victims I had too, if I can recall.
What do you remember about the Julia Hanson case?
You remember the railroad spikes you found at my property that I used to nail her down? I left them at my property for a reason. I've been deemed a threat to society before, way before, any of these crimes came into fruition. And I remember the exact moment that this all happened. See, when I was 8 years old, I took the family dog for a walk. We went to the trails in their backyard. And when I got deep down there and no one was around, I gutted him. Just to see what his insides looked like. I remember sitting back and watching the twitching and the warmth coming off of the organs in the snow. And then when I went back to the home to say something happened to the dog, I blamed it on a bear. And my family believed me. And when I learned I can turn on waterworks and lie, I can lie to get anything I want. And what I've realized is that if I keep on lying, women will keep dying. I wanted to be caught.
And Julia, it didn't seem as calculated as your first victims.
I'm not guilty, I'm not guilty of anything. The only thing I'm guilty of is loving Julia. If I couldn't have her, no one else could. Especially her fucking husband. Can you believe that? Getting married right out of high school? That's a bitch. That doesn't give people like me a chance. But it wasn't hard to pick off her husband. It's very easy to break into their little cottage out in the middle of the woods on a nice December night. It was cold. I snuck in through the basement. And her husband didn't hear me because he had big giant headphones on and his back was turned. I made sure to come in at that. I got real close, pulled out of my pocket a 9mm handgun, put a little silencer on it. Boom, right through the back of his head. I held his body up so we make a little thump to distract Julia or get her all scared. She saw me when I went upstairs, but I subdued her, and I nailed her to her kitchen fucking chair. I remember her screaming in pain as she woke up from being knocked out, the tears rolling down her cheeks, and her choking on her spit and her gag. Oh, I can't forget that melody. I loved it. I stripped her naked as she sat there, and I burned my initials all over her body until she would pass out from the pain. I wanted to further our love more, so I searched the house for a little fun. And what I found in the basement in her little husband's tool shed was about a 9-inch iron bar, something you'd use to install a handle, maybe about this thick. And I remember bringing it upstairs, and there's a Kindle going on in the living room. So I'd put it on the Kindle. About 4 or 5 minutes, I'd pick it up with an oven mitt, and I would slowly stick it up her joy trail. The joy I felt with that one. And I would do that several times until she kept passing out and passing out. I'll never forget the beautiful stench of her sizzling vaginal skin. I stood back and viewed my work after doing it 4 or 5 more times. And I got disgusted. And I pulled out another clip and I loaded my 9mm with the silencer and I fired every single round into her fucking skull. I took her body and I threw it in the acid vats that you found on my property. So there's one body that you know of in those vats. I truly loved Julia Hansen. I loved her to death.
Okay, John, now we're going to talk about some other crime.